The snow fell softly over the white peaks of the Himalayan mountains, untouched by war or machines, until today. A thunderous roar cracked the calm sky. A massive black ship, shaped like a dagger, pierced through the clouds. Its engines burned blue fire as it hovered above the mountain ridge. The snow trembled, ice cracked, birds flew off in panic. People from a nearby human settlement stood watching, their scarves tied around their faces, their breath visible in the freezing air. They had been warned of this moment. The Empire had arrived. The ship landed with a slow hiss. The heat from its engines melted the snow beneath it, revealing cold, ancient stone. A ramp extended from the ship's belly, and out stepped the Empire's envoy, Admiral Kreistal. He was tall, almost 3 meters. His armor was thick, sharp, and shimmered with green and silver lights. He moved like a war machine, his every step shaking the ground. Behind him marched soldiers in dark suits, their faces hidden by glass helmets. Captain Leora West stood at the front of the human crowd. Her boots were buried in snow, her hands resting lightly on her hips. She had faced many threats before: bandits, storms, sickness. But this was different. These were aliens, rulers of 13 star systems, conquerors. And yet, as Crystal approached, speaking through a glowing translator orb, the unexpected happened. "Humans of Earth," the orb said in a deep, serious tone, "bow before the power of the Star Empire. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to..." Suddenly, the translator glitched. "Cook soup with your onions and frogs." There was silence. Then someone in the human group chuckled. Another laughed. Then more. In seconds, the snow-covered mountain was filled with laughter. Lara tried to stay serious, but she couldn't help it. The moment was too strange, too ridiculous. The giant alien with all his seriousness, threatening them with soup and frogs. Even Kreistal looked confused. He stared at the humans, unsure if this was an insult, a custom, or a weapon. His second-in-command leaned closer. "Should we destroy them, Admiral?" But Kreistal raised a hand. "No," he said calmly. "Observe. They are strange." Leora stepped forward, still smiling. "Sorry about the glitch. Happens all the time in our mountains." Kreistal tilted his head. He had studied humans. He expected fear or maybe worship. But this? Laughter. The air between them stayed cold, but something had shifted. Neither side knew what this meeting would bring, but it had started in a way no one expected. Laughter echoed through the snowy cliffs, and the Empire's invasion had officially begun. Not with a scream, but with a laugh. The sun peeked through the clouds, casting long shadows on the snowy ground. The Empire's ship stood firm like a black mountain, humming quietly with energy. The humans had set up a small meeting circle at the base of the ramp, using old benches and chairs brought from the village. It looked humble, almost silly, compared to the high-tech might of the Empire. But the humans didn't seem to care. Inside the ship, Admiral Kreistal was pacing. His armor clanked with every step. His expression, though hidden under his helmet, showed frustration. He was a proud commander. He had conquered worlds. But these humans, they laughed at his arrival. He didn't understand them, and that made him uneasy. His assistant, Officer Velchar, handed him a metal scroll. "The first contact protocols, Admiral." Kreistal took the scroll and nodded. "Yes, it's time to show them how serious we are." Outside, Captain Leora West leaned back on her chair, warming her hands over a small fire. She looked at the other humans and raised an eyebrow. "Think they'll bring snacks this time?" One of the villagers chuckled. "Maybe soup. With frogs." Leora laughed, shaking her head. "Careful. That might start a war." Just then, the ramp hissed open. Kreistal walked down with 4 soldiers, all marching in perfect lines. The humans straightened up. The air turned quiet. Kreistal stopped in front of the circle and unrolled the metal scroll. The translator orb floated beside him, glowing softly. "I, Admiral Chrystal of the Ninth Conquest Legion, speak on behalf of the Eternal Star Empire. The translator said, "We come not to beg, but to command. You will obey our laws. Your world now belongs to the Empire. You will serve or be removed." He paused for the words to sink in, but Leora just blinked and leaned forward. "That's your welcome speech." Chrystal was caught off guard. It is standard for conquered species. Another human whispered, "Do they always sound like robots reading a grocery list?" Leora stood up and stepped forward. "Look, big guy, we're honored you flew all this way, but you might want to tone it down. Earth isn't a fan of bullies." Chrystal narrowed his eyes. "This is not a request." "Well, good," Leora said with a grin, "because we're not in the mood to say yes." Suddenly, a snowball flew from somewhere behind the humans and hit one of the Empire soldiers square in the helmet. Everyone froze. Then the humans burst out laughing again. Chrystal's soldiers raised their weapons, but he lifted a hand to stop them. He stared at the humans. No fear, no panic, just laughter. "I don't understand," he said quietly to himself. Lyra gave a small shrug. "Maybe you're just not funny enough." And with that, the Empire's most serious first contact mission had turned into something no one had expected. A slow, confusing, and very human comedy. In the snow-covered mountains of Earth, the battle had not yet begun, but the game of wits had. The snowstorm arrived quietly, like a whisper in the wind. The clouds thickened and the sun disappeared behind a gray curtain. Snow began to fall again, soft at first, then heavier. The mountains grew quiet, as if holding their breath. Crystal stood on the high ridge above the human village, looking down at the valley. His armored boots were buried in snow. Scanners in his helmet blinked with strange signals. Something old was buried deep beneath the ice. Something powerful. "Admiral," Officer Velcher said behind him, "our instruments are detecting an energy source below." "Far below?" Crystal nodded. "Then dig." At once, Empire drones floated from the ship. They extended sharp claws and drills and began cutting into the frozen earth. The noise echoed through the valley like thunder. Ice cracked. Steam hissed. Something ancient stirred beneath the mountain. Not far from there, Leora West stood at the edge of a frozen river with a radio in her hand. She was watching the Empire's digging from a distance. Her brown eyes were sharp, alert. "We've got company down below," she said into the radio. "Empire's after something. Probably not snowballs this time." Back at her side, an old villager named Haroon squinted at the mountain. That area was sealed during the collapse. No one's been there in hundreds of years. Leora frowned. Why would they want what's buried down there? Before Haroon could answer, a deep rumble shook the ground. A sharp crack split the air. The ice beneath the Empire's drilling machines collapsed, revealing a wide, dark hole. Blue light glowed from within. Strange symbols flickered on walls of metal and stone. Crystal stepped forward and stared down into the hole. "It's not a weapon," he muttered. "It's a vault." He ordered 2 soldiers to descend. They dropped in with ropes, flashlights blinking in the darkness, but as soon as they touched the ground inside, something responded. A pulse of light burst from the walls, followed by a strange sound, like a whisper mixed with static. Every scanner on Crystal's armor lit up. He took a step back. Inside the vault, the soldiers stopped moving. Their suits went dark. Communications were cut. Then came a new signal, one not from the Empire's systems, but from something far older. And it wasn't talking to the Empire. It was calling someone else. Miles away, Leora's radio crackled. A cold, robotic voice spoke just 2 words, "Welcome back." She dropped the radio. Haroon looked at her. What was that? Leora shook her head. Her heart was racing, and a strange feeling spread through her chest, like a memory she couldn't remember. "I think," she said slowly, "they woke up something that belongs to us." Above them, the storm raged harder. The Empire thought they had found a prize. But Earth had secrets even they couldn't understand. And now the ice had cracked. Night fell over the snow mountains like a heavy blanket. The wind howled between the icy peaks, and the Empire's base glowed softly in the dark. Tall metal towers had been built quickly. Their blue lights blinked across the valley, and sharp fences hummed with electric charge. Inside the base, Empire soldiers walked in perfect lines. Drones floated above, watching every inch of snow. Crystal sat in his command tent, staring at the screen showing the glowing underground vault. He still didn't know what it truly was, but something in his gut told him it wasn't ordinary. "Admiral," said Velchar, "the humans are too calm. It's not normal." Crystal didn't answer right away. His eyes narrowed. "They're hiding something." A gust of wind shook the tent. But it wasn't wind. At that same moment, just beyond the Empire's fences, shadows moved silently across the snow. They were dressed in white cloaks, blending into the frozen landscape. Their faces were hidden behind snow masks, and their hands carried odd tools, wooden clappers, echo horns, and tiny light projectors. They were not soldiers. They were pranksters. Lyra led them, crawling over a frozen ridge just beside the base. Her breath puffed in the cold air, but her smile stayed wide. "You all remember the plan," she whispered. "Scare the boots off them," one man replied. "Good," she said. "Let's begin." At once, strange howls echoed through the mountains, long, sad, and chilling. The sounds bounced between the cliffs, sounding like ghostly cries. Empire guards spun around, weapons raised. Then came flashing lights, green and red, moving quickly across the snow. They weren't weapons. They were just small lights tied to sticks, spinning in circles. Inside the base, the alarms started to ring. "Motion detected on the north side," shouted a soldier. Crystal stormed out of the tent, scanning the darkness. "Send drones." The drones zipped out into the night, but they'd found nothing, just snow, wind, and strange echoes. One drone caught a glimpse of a figure in white, then suddenly shut down. Another saw what looked like a floating mask, then nothing. The guards were on edge. Some even fired into the night. But no enemy came. Back in the hills, Leora and her group laughed silently as they crawled away. "Scared them good," someone whispered. Leora touched the device in her pocket, the one that had spoken to her earlier. It now blinked gently. She didn't know what it wanted yet, but she had a feeling it would be important. "They're nervous now," she said. "That's good. Let's keep them confused." Far behind her, Crystal stared into the snow. "I don't believe in ghosts," he said to himself. But deep down something made him uneasy. Not fear, but doubt. These humans were not what he expected. They weren't warriors. They weren't slaves. They were something else entirely. And tonight, they had walked straight into the Empire's camp without being caught. Uninvited. And unseen. Snow fell gently as dawn painted the sky with soft orange and purple. The mountains looked peaceful again, but the feeling beneath the surface was tense, like the earth itself was holding a secret. Lyra West stood at the edge of the newly opened vault. She wore a thick fur-lined coat, her breath fogging in the cold air. The entrance below glowed with blue light, still pulsing quietly. She could feel the hum in her chest, as if something inside was calling her. Two villagers stood beside her with ropes and flashlights. "You sure about this?" one of them asked. Lyra gave a small smile. Not even a little. She climbed down slowly into the vault. The walls were made of smooth black metal, covered in glowing patterns. It didn't feel like any human-made structure she'd ever seen, but it didn't feel alien either. It felt familiar. As she reached the bottom, her eyes landed on something resting on a stone platform. A sword. But not a normal one. It floated just inches above the surface, glowing softly. The blade was silver with lines of blue energy running through it. It looked like ice and fire mixed into metal. Leora stepped closer. As she did, the sword reacted. It spun slowly, as if sensing her. Her heartbeat quickened. She reached out. The moment her fingers touched the handle, the blade flared with light. A jolt shot through her arm, not pain, but power. The patterns on the wall lit up one by one, and a voice filled the chamber. DNA match confirmed. Guardian recognized. Leora stumbled back, eyes wide. The sword floated to her hand like it belonged there. It was light, perfectly balanced. It didn't feel like a weapon. It felt like a key. Above ground, alarms rang through the Empire base. Crystal ran toward the vault with a full squad. "She's in the structure," Velcher yelled. "The artifact is active." By the time Crystal reached the entrance, Leora had climbed out. The sword was now strapped across her back, glowing faintly under her coat. Crystal saw it and froze. "That blade," he said slowly. "It is not from your time." Leora raised an eyebrow. "It's not from yours either." Crystal's helmet scanned her. "You've bonded with the system. That weapon is connected to Earth's lost defense grid. Whoever controls it could awaken technologies across the planet. Technologies even my Empire fears." Leora looked at him, unsure what to believe. "Then maybe your Empire shouldn't have started digging." Crystal stepped forward. "Give it to me. You don't know what you're holding." "No," Leora said firmly. "But I know it chose me." The mountain wind howled between them. For a moment, they stood in silence, two leaders from different worlds, both trying to understand what came next. Behind them, the sword pulsed with soft blue light. It had slept for centuries. Now it had awakened. And it had chosen sides. Thick snowflakes danced in the air as Leora pushed forward through the frozen forest. The ancient sword on her back pulsed with soft blue light hidden beneath her coat. Her boots crunched the snow, and her eyes searched the path ahead. Behind her followed two trusted villagers and an old snowmobile pulling a sled full of supplies. They were heading for a hidden cave, an old science shelter built during Earth's collapse era. Leora hoped it would help her understand what the sword really was. She didn't trust the Empire. And now that she had something they clearly wanted, she knew they'd come for her. She was right. High above in the trees, small black drones tracked her every move. On a distant peak, Crystal watched through his helmet's visor. "Target has the artifact. Set the trap," he said coldly. Within minutes, the snow around Leora's group exploded. Red lights flashed. Drones dropped from the sky like metal hawks. Her companion screamed and ducked behind trees as beams of energy scorched the ground. "Ambush," Leora shouted. She pulled the sword from her back. As soon as it left the sheath, a wide pulse of blue light pushed outward, knocking the nearest drone from the sky. The sword hummed in her hand. It seemed to understand her panic. "Run to the ridge," she ordered. "There's a drop. We can lose them." They ran. Drones followed. Then the mountain gave them a gift, or maybe a warning. A loud crack echoed through the valley. The snow under their feet trembled. Then came the avalanche. A wall of snow roared from the cliffs above, crashing down with wild force. Trees broke like twigs. The Empire's drones vanished in white. Leora turned just in time to see Crystal trying to escape the falling snow. He jumped from a ledge, but it was too late. The snow swallowed him. She paused, her heart racing. Her team had made it to the ridge safely, but Crystal was gone. Almost. A metal hand reached from beneath the snow, weak and slow. Leora hesitated. He had attacked them. He wanted the sword, but something inside her refused to walk away. She dropped the sword gently and ran toward the buried figure. Using her hands and a broken branch, she dug through the snow. Finally, she found Crystal's helmet, cracked and frosted. His breathing was shallow. "You're lucky I'm nicer than you," she muttered. With all her strength, she dragged him from the edge of the avalanche zone, back to her group. They were stunned. "You saved him?" one asked. "I didn't do it for him," she said. "I did it because I'm human, and we don't leave people to freeze." As they disappeared into the trees, carrying the unconscious alien admiral with them, the sword pulsed once more, brighter than before. The lines between enemy and ally had begun to blur, and the snow, silent as ever, kept their secret. The storm had passed. but the wind still whispered through the trees. In a small cabin deep in the snowy woods, Kristall lay on a wooden bed, his armor removed and his injuries bandaged. A fire burned quietly in the corner, casting soft light over the room. Leora sat nearby, sipping hot tea and watching him closely. She had risked her life to save him during the avalanche, and now he was resting under a human roof, safe for now. Kristall opened his eyes slowly. His breathing was rough, but steady. "You should have left me," he said, his voice weak. Leora shrugged. "Would have been easier, but we don't always do what's easy." He looked around, confused. "This is a shelter?" "An old supply cabin," Leora said. "We keep it stocked in case of blizzards. You're lucky. If you had landed a few meters to the left, you'd be an icicle." Kristall sat up slowly, wincing in pain. "I don't understand you people." Leora smiled. "That makes two of us." Meanwhile, back at the Empire's camp, things were changing. Kristall's second-in-command, Commander Seksu, had taken charge after the Admiral went missing. He was not as calm as Kristall. He believed in fear, control, and force. He ordered loudspeakers to play warnings across the mountains. Drones began searching every village, every forest, looking for signs of rebellion. But what they'd found was laughter. In one village, they found children wearing fake alien helmets, dancing around a snowman dressed like an Empire general. In another, they found prank signs that pointed drones in the wrong direction. One drone flew in circles for hours, chasing a balloon that had "This way to victory" written on it. Confused, the Empire soldiers grew restless. Reports flooded in. "Locals are making fun of us. They're not resisting. They're mocking. They think we're a joke." Commander Seksu was furious. They must learn respect. Crush the laughter. But it was too late. The humans weren't the only ones laughing now. Across the galaxy, the Empire's message had reached other planets. Rebellions in quiet corners of the stars saw Earth's response and began to copy it. They stopped fighting with fear. They started using jokes, tricks, and laughter to confuse their oppressors. Laughter became a weapon, a message. "You do not own our minds." Back in the cabin, Kristall stared at Leora with new eyes. "They're laughing at us." "Maybe that's what you needed," she replied. "You came here expecting fear. But Earth doesn't follow your rules. We have our own way." Kristall sat in silence. The firelight flickered in his eyes. "They will punish you for this," he said. Leora nodded. "Then we'll laugh even louder." Outside, the snow fell quietly again, covering the world in white. The rebellion had begun not with a battle, but with a joke. And the Empire, for the first time, had no idea how to fight back. The cold wind whipped fiercely across the mountain ridge, carrying sharp flakes of ice that cut like tiny knives. Leora and her small group hurried through the frozen forest, their breath coming in quick, visible bursts. The weight of the ancient sword on Leora's back felt heavier than ever. The rebellion they had sparked was spreading fast, but so was the Empire's anger. Far below, hidden inside a steel fortress carved into the mountain, Commander Seksu sat alone. His face was hard and cold, unlike Kristall's thoughtful eyes. He had no patience for mercy or laughter. To him, the humans were nothing but pests to be crushed. He tapped a cold metal table, activating a hologram of the snowy valley. Red lights blinked, the positions of human villages, rebel hideouts, and Leora's group. "They have the sword," Seksu said quietly. "That blade can turn the tide. It must be taken." His officers nodded grimly. "We will strike tonight," Seksu ordered. "No mercy." Leora's group reached the edge of a cliff overlooking a hidden cave entrance. It was their next refuge. The sword's glow pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. "We rest here," Leora said. "We can't keep running forever." Her friends gathered around a small fire, pulling their coats tighter. The peace was fragile. Suddenly, distant sounds shattered the quiet. Metal footsteps crunching on snow, faint but growing louder. "Enemies," whispered one of the villagers. Leora's eyes narrowed. "Get ready." Before they could react, dark shapes burst from the trees. Empire soldiers, moving swiftly and silently. The rebels scattered, firing makeshift weapons and dodging beams of energy. Leora held the sword high. The blade shone bright, cutting through the snowstorm like a beacon. She fought fiercely, protecting her friends as they retreated toward the cave. But the Empire's soldiers were too many. Suddenly, a sharp cry came from behind. Leora turned to see a figure stepping through the snow, a human in Empire armor, eyes cold and filled with betrayal. "Sexu's spy," whispered one of the villagers. "He's been watching us." The traitor raised his weapon and aimed at Leora. Time slowed. Leora's hand moved swiftly, locking the blast with the sword. Sparks flew. "I trusted you," she said, voice shaking with hurt. The spy sneered. "I serve the Empire. You're fools to think you can win." Before Leora could react, a powerful beam struck her side. She fell, breathless. Her friends cried out, fighting to protect her as the spy disappeared into the shadows. Christal, who had followed at a distance, arrived just in time to see her fall. His face was pale beneath his helmet. Without hesitation, he raised his weapon and drove back the attackers. "We have to move," Christal said, helping Leora to her feet. She nodded weakly, gripping the sword. The betrayal stung deeply. But it also strengthened their resolve. "We fight," Leora whispered, "for Earth, for those who believe in freedom." The cold night wrapped around them, but inside burned a fierce fire. The battle was far from over.